Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I am Dr. Jessica Shepard, and I have been terrified, not necessarily right now, even though this is a little daunting, speaking to such a large crowd, but in my life, there have been moments that I have been terrified, and I'm sure that some of you in here have had those moments as well. But the theme for today, for Women's Day, is worth. And the women that have shared in the previous services and that will share in this service, in addition to myself, are here to empower everyone, particularly women, today in our stories and our journeys and with the scripture. And so I, as a physician, love to empower people in their health. It's one of the most favorite things that I have to do in the office is to empower women. And so I want you all to be empowered today and feel engaged in what I have to share with you over the next few minutes. And so with that being said, I'm going to reintroduce myself. My name is Dr. Jessica Shepard, and I am fearless. I think that sounded much better than the first intro I had, so I think I'll stick with I am fearless. And the scripture that I'm going to share with you this morning is Mark chapter 6, verse 50. Is because they all saw him and were terrified, immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take courage. Do not be afraid. I am here." I am here. And if you can remember that scripture and the story that surrounded that is when Jesus went to pray and the disciples went out on sea to fish, middle of the night, and a storm started. And it was very severe. I'm sure there were lots of waves, and they were struggling. Needless to say, maybe they were struggling for their lives at that time. And when Jesus came towards them walking on water, as he came towards them, if you read the scripture as how I read it, was he maybe even tended to keep walking past them because he was okay. He was like, I walk on water all the time. This is fine. That's what I do. And when they saw him, they cried out in terror. And that's when he said, "Do not be afraid. Take courage. I am here." And then he stepped into the boat. And of course, as when Jesus does anything, everything was calm and all was well. And so how I relate to that particular story is, as a physician, we have a very long, arduous, backbreaking, never-ending, if you can tell from all those adjectives that I used, that it's a very long journey to get to where we practice medicine. And so with that comes a lot of moments that we can be fearful, have doubt and terror, because we have expectations to live up to, not only within the medical community, but for people who come to us, our patients. They have expectations of, I'm coming to you for your expertise, and I need you to do this for me, whatever that is. And so with those expectations and all the board exams and licensing exams that we take, that can create many opportunities for us to feel doubtful about ourselves. And even on top of that, as a Black female physician, if you think of all the physicians in the US, there are only 2% of Black female physicians, 2%. And so even with that percentage and that statistic, there are many more opportunities for us to feel lack of confidence and doubt. So whatever those storms may be that you experience in your life and your journey, whether it's your career and your marriage, just in your personal life, sometimes those can be secret storms that you just know about, or maybe a few people in your circle know about. Or they can be very public storms, the storms that sometimes you don't want everyone to know about, but everyone seems to know about it. It's like it's broadcast on the National Weather Channel, and you're like, I wish that broadcast would just shut down and not talk about this weather and this storm that I'm experiencing in my life right now. But in those storms, Jesus said to us, as he said to the disciples, I am here. He said, I am here. And so the important part is don't take the presence of a storm to indicate the absence of God. Do not take the presence of a storm to indicate the absence of God, because God is in that storm. He sees you, he sees the storm, he sees it all together. He knows how big the storm is, how long the storm is going to endure. And he is there to push you, to encourage you, to challenge you, to provide a miracle. That's what he's there to do, because he knows the outcome. The real question is, can we hear God in that storm? Can we hear God? Because he's talking to us, but can you hear him? So, as a pelvic surgeon, I'm a gynecologic surgeon. I spend most of my time in the operating room. And many times these cases can be very complex, very long. Sometimes we don't know how that pelvis is going to look, how that surgery is going to, how long it's going to take. It can take anywhere from as quick as an hour to, for example, last week I was in the operating room for one particular case for 6 hours because it was just really difficult. And even in those cases, I have my times that it challenges even all of my surgical skill sets. And I'm pushed to the limit because I'm like, this patient has expectation. And that's my responsibility. And even in the quiet of the OR, even though I do play a lot of music in my OR, in the quiet of my thoughts, in a sterile OR, covered up cap, gown, mask, can only see our eyes. Doubt has a way of just finding its way into the OR, finding its way past that face mask and that cap and gown, and whispering doubt. Very slick, that doubt it is. But no matter what the storm, if it's a circumstantial storm that you have no power over, if it's an emotional storm, if it affects the emotional stability from external factors, and it's causing a storm within you, Jesus wants you to know that he wants you to take courage, because do not be afraid. Take courage, I am here. Giving you a little bit more background of who I am and where I'm from. I'm Canadian, very proud Canadian. My husband hears this all the time and he just shakes his head because I talk about Canada all the time. Best country in the world, especially now. I mean, I'll go ahead and take credit for Canada right now. But the definition of courage actually comes from a French word that means coeur, which means heart. And courage really is to take heart or have heart in a situation. And the dictionary actually defines courage as the quality of the mind or spirit to enable a person to encounter a difficult, painful situation without fear and with heart. So, as a Black female surgeon, 2% of the medical population, this is what I use to push me through, to be fearless. In those moments when I am pushed to go to the limit of what I know and what I can do, is to have courage and have heart, because in that storm, in that moment, Jesus is there. And you cannot lose sight of Jesus in those storms, because he will never, ever, never, 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 ever lose sight of you. He will never, ever lose sight of you. So as I leave you this morning with the scripture of Mark 6, verse 50, is that I am fearless. I am fearless. And as that becomes your mantra, I really do believe in mindfulness and the ability of how powerful the brain is, how powerful it is to actually get us through circumstances, in addition to the trust that we have in Jesus. Is that as you have that mantra to bring you through those moments, and say, I am fearless, with power. You can't say it wimpy, I'm fearless. It has to be, I am fearless, is to remember that to recognize Christ's presence is the antidote to fear. So as I leave you this morning, I encourage you, I implore you to be bold, to take courage, to have heart in those instances where you feel doubt or fearful, because Jesus has not lost sight of you in that storm. I am fearless.